Hi, my name's Kenny Harris, and this is the Kennysburg Address. Now, what is the Kennysburg Address, you might be wondering? Well, I'm not quite sure. I'm kind of developing it here as we go. But today's topic is of a timely nature, and it is something that absolutely needed to be done and posted as close to this date, September 11th, as I possibly could. Because today, Kennysburg Address, Kenny's going to be addressing certain strange but true facts of the 9/11 World Trade Center attacks. And not necessarily things that everyone knows. By now, over the last 24 years, I can only imagine that you feel that you've probably seen it all and heard it all by now. And that could very well be true. It's not like the stuff that I have here is all completely brand new, exclusive stuff. But I venture to say that a few things here are going to be new and interesting and maybe a bit upsetting to at least a few of you. And it's just something that we need to talk about, right? I don't claim to be an expert. I don't claim to, know definitively about things. But what we're going to do here is we're going to discuss conspiracy theories, right? And I'm going to do my best to take certain things that people conspiracy theorize about and try and actually prove that it's all not that crazy. And, maybe we need to take another look at this. And maybe sometimes where there's smoke, there really is fire. So I just wanted to point out a couple things here. I don't know if you knew a whole lot about the man that owned the World Trade Center buildings at the time of September 11th, 2001. It's a man by the name of Larry Silverstein. That man's still alive to this day, and he's out there. I believe he still lives in New York City. It's interesting to learn about him because he only acquired the building via auction roughly 6 or 7 weeks before September 11th. So he already owned Building 7. Larry Silverstein already owned Building 7 since 1980, okay? And he had always been interested in buying the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, right? Because he wanted the two biggest buildings. He wanted the two buildings that, dwarfed the large building that he had in Building 7. So he had always fantasized about that, right? And apparently, as I learned by looking into this, the World Trade Center was owned by the New Jersey Port Authority, okay, prior to Larry Silverstein. Pardon me. It's a real tight ship we run around here. Real professional. I had to wet my whistle. I'm hoping that if the information is interesting enough, you'll just go along with however I look, whatever I'm doing, whatever's in the background, and, whatever happens. So where did I leave off? Yeah. Okay. So, the New Jersey Port Authority, and they owned the building and they wanted to try and sell it. So there were a few interested parties, but not very many, because did you know, and I think this is one of the interesting topics that a lot of people don't cover or are that knowledgeable of. Did you know that the Twin Tower buildings, both of them, were completely riddled with asbestos? Terribly so. I mean, and it was very dangerous, and it was going to be a problem. So obviously, at some point, they were going to need to fix that. They were going to need to get rid of the asbestos in both the Twin Towers. Now, this was while the Port Authority still owned the towers, and it was before Larry Silverstein was in the picture, right? So they were looking around to different people, and they got bids on what it would cost to try and rid the towers of asbestos. And all the projections were really high. And, the estimates range from like 5 to 20 year project to rid the Twin Towers of asbestos, okay? And the Port Authority didn't think that was viable. They didn't think that made sense, and they didn't know how they could do that, and that project, and it was going to be so expensive, right? And I don't know the exact amount, but I've heard estimates of like, $1 billion project, over the course of all these years to rid the Twin Towers of asbestos, right? So nobody wanted to go near these buildings, okay? Nobody wanted to make this investment, but there was a company that did, and they won the bidding, and they're not the one that ended up with the building, or they would be Larry Silverstein. It was a different company, and I looked into this, and apparently they initially won the bid over Larry Silverstein, but there was some sort of discrepancy or disagreement between them and the Port Authority in the deal that made them then be disqualified. And then Larry, lucky for Larry, he was then awarded the World Trade Center buildings that he had dreamt of owning. Have I mentioned that Larry is good friends with Bibi Netanyahu? And like every Israeli prime minister of, that's come around in the last, several decades. That's just like a thing I would just mention. I just figured that that's also another strange but true fact that I learned, that Larry Silverstein was actually very, very close with Bibi Netanyahu. Just somebody that happened to predict that, Islamic terrorists were going to attack the World Trade Center buildings. He wrote about it in his book, and, he just kept saying it over and over again in conversations, with people in private and, in public, and he talked about it everywhere. And then, after the 9/11 attacks, that same man said that it was very good. It was good for Israel. And then he kind of stopped himself and took a step back and kind of said, well, not good, but, it's going to change the view and the perception of like Muslims, and that will help their cause in Israel, right? So that's just interesting, right? That they were friends, that Netanyahu and Larry Silverstein were good friends. I thought that was interesting. But so I digress. Back to the asbestos, right? So nobody wanted it. Then somebody got it, but then they lost the bid. I don't know. Maybe that was, on the up and up. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe something weird happened there between New York, government officials, or perhaps the Israeli officials, played a role in that person losing out the bid to New York so that the second place winner, Lucky Larry, would get in there, right? He's so lucky. I don't know how he got it, but he ends up getting the buildings, right? So he owns them, but he knows that they're full of asbestos. But so he wanted them anyway for some reason. And he decides to take out a huge insurance policy. Excuse me. Thank you. You gotta pardon me. I'm a bit under the weather these days. All right, so then basically, where did I leave off? Yeah, Larry gets the building, and then there's the asbestos, right? So what's to do about that? Well, first thing Larry does is he gets a huge insurance policy on his investment, right? He gets the building, and he gets a 99-year long lease on these asbestos-filled, death traps that absolutely need to be basically almost completely like torn down, and rebuilt up without the asbestos like all up in the walls. And he takes out a huge insurance policy on the towers, and lucky for him, it just so happened to cover terrorist attacks, which apparently it did. And at the time, I don't know if that's still a common thing, but lucky for him, right? Convenient for Lucky Larry. Lucky Larry. Hey, Larry, you're so lucky. He's still alive. He's in New York, I believe, right? Larry Silverstein. Anywho, so he takes out that insurance claim, and it happens to cover for terrorist attacks, right? Well, just like 6 weeks later, wouldn't you know it, there's a terrorist attack, right? I mean, I think we all know what happened. And not one, but two. One could argue maybe just one terrorist attack, right? On the World Trade Center attacks with the plane. But he was very lucky. Again, Lucky Larry was able to win in a several year long court battle, but he was eventually able to win a court dispute where they had the insurance companies, I think like 22 different insurance companies had to pay out to him almost $5 billion for the two buildings that he had just bought 6 years earlier. Not 6 years earlier, 6 weeks earlier. Like not 6 years, it was 6 weeks. Oh my God, like a month and a half. Anyway, so what else? What else do we have here? Also, a very interesting thing to mention is that Larry never missed a day at work. He's a billionaire. He's a very successful businessman who's never missed a day at work. He was never late. And in the roughly month and a half that he was the owner of the World Trade Center building, downstairs, I believe, in the restaurant or whatever of the building, he would have breakfast every morning without fail. Every single morning from when he started owning the buildings, he would have his breakfast there in that restaurant at the World Trade Center. Lucky Larry liked the breakfast. Anyway, pardon me. Lucky Larry, man. That guy was lucky. He's still alive, too. He's still alive. He could have died that day, but you wait until you hear why he didn't. So lucky. Lucky Larry. So then where do we leave off? Basically, then at that point, Larry, doesn't have breakfast in the World Trade Center building the morning of September 11th, obviously. But why? Well, because of an emergency dermatologist appointment, of course. Silly. Did you know that? Did you know that the owner of the World Trade Center building didn't go into work the day of 9/11, just 6 weeks after he bought the building, and he never missed a day at work, and he's never late, and every morning he's in there and he has breakfast at the building, but not on September 11th because his wife demands of him, she makes him. He says, no, honey, I gotta get into the city. I gotta get downtown. I'm busy, honey. I'm busy. And she's like, Larry, you gotta go to the dermatologist. Get that mole checked out. How? Today. And so anyway, I mean, Lucky Larry goes to the dermatologist and I guess gets a little, checkup. I have those results here. I don't know what his doctor found or not that day, or whether or not he even showed up, right? Maybe there was a lot of traffic downtown, but yeah. So Larry didn't go into work that day because of an emergency dermatologist appointment. Pretty interesting, right? But he wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one that missed work that day at the World Trade Center building. You see, at that time in New York City in 2001, they had a population of 1.1 million people. 1.1 million people, okay, on that island. And I don't have the exact number. Don't quote me. So I don't have the exact number of how many Israeli Jews worked at the World Trade Center buildings, but there were a lot. I do know that there were a considerable amount. I'm just saying, I don't know how many, but there were several hundred. And the reason I know that is because at the time, you remember AIM? You remember AOL's instant message service? Around this time, there was an Israeli-owned and operated instant message service, believe it or not, called Odigo, 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 O-D-I-G-O, 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 and Odigo was its name. Oh, yeah, Odigo, Odigo, O-D-I-G-O. They were Israeli owned and operated, this instant message service, right? And they just so happened to be, like, their headquarters just so happened to be located within a couple blocks of the World Trade Center building. So that worked out, right? That worked out. That's lucky. Larry. And then basically, it's very interesting to notice, right, that of the 2,753 lives that I saw were lost in the 9/11 attacks, only 4 were of Israeli, I suppose, Zionist, descent. They were only 4 were Israeli. Out of the 2,753 lives lost in the World Trade Center attacks in New York City, very high, population of Jewish people and Israeli people, Zionists, right? 4, only 4 were lost that day. Why is that? Well, rumor has it that apparently just a couple hours before the tower attacks, instant messages were sent out on Odigo, O-O-D-I-G-O, O-D-I-G-O, yeah, Odigo was its name-o, was the instant messenger name-o, that we'll have to remember-o, and apparently hundreds of Israeli people were notified in advance, a couple hours in advance, on this instant message service, right? But only the Israeli people, I suppose, were notified, because I've never heard talk of any other story such as this, right? But they try and cover this story up, but this was originally covered in the Haaretz news, as a popular Middle Eastern, whatever, Israeli news site reference point, right? I'm not just making this up. But in the years since, if you try and look it up, and I just recently tried to cross-reference and look it up, and if you try and Google it now, it'll try and lie to you, and it'll try and tell you as if it's some sort of crazy, far-fetched anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, and it's not. It's really not. Larry Silverstein definitely knew in advance. The owner of the World Trade Center buildings absolutely knew in advance. He knew in advance that the planes were going to attack. He also, remember, he owned Building 7 prior. He owned Building 7 in 1980. is when he owned that property. So he already owned Building 7, the building that falls down, I guess just because like somebody blew on it. I mean, like nobody hit it with anything. There was no contact from a plane or anything, or large piece of building that had hit it that made it come down. It was absolutely brought down in a controlled demolition way, right? And you've heard that before. You've heard that. I mean, that was, but the thing is there's so many experts out there, people that are far more educated than me. I went to broadcasting school. I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. So I technically got like a trade school degree in broadcasting, but essentially I'm just like, I got a high school diploma after going to 3 summer school programs in order to get enough credits to get my diploma, because I had roughly 100 absences my senior year in high school. So, and I wasn't some druggie or some, troublemaker necessarily. I would literally like just go home and watch the news or watch Small Wonder or The Cosby Show, because that was before we knew about Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby. Anyway, I digress. Back to the news. We'll be wrapping up soon, I swear, with the first episode of the Kennysburg Address. I just wanted to tell you guys, all my Kenspiracy theorists out there, that it's just very interesting to know that Silverstein, good friends with Netanyahu. Netanyahu's writing about, the towers getting attacked years in advance in his book. He's having dreams about it. And when it happens, he says it's very good. Silverstein knows about the asbestos. Nobody wants to buy this. He's fine with it. He buys it. Well, it really worked out for him, didn't it? I mean, my God, it's some Silverstein lightning if there's ever been. My God, that is crazy. Lucky Larry buys the building, takes out the insurance claim that covers terrorist attacks, and then 6 weeks later, goddamn, were there some terrorist attacks. And then he fights and wins in court and gets double, what he should, and still likes to bitch and moan that he didn't get what he deserved, as if he deserved anything. I don't know why. If what I'm saying is true, see, it's going to be really hard for you guys to wrap your head around it, but if what I'm saying is true, Israel's not our greatest ally. And in the episodes to come, I hope you'll come back and you'll watch Kennysburg Address, because I plan on addressing a lot of things such as this. And I can't promise that it's always going to come across like a professional show here, but I'm going to give you everything I got, and I'm telling you the truth, and I'm never going to lie to you. I'm never going to pretend to know something that I don't, and I'm not going to steer you the wrong way. I'm going to give you the information, the notes that I have, and hope that you'll go and try and cross-reference it and try and look for the information yourself, because the vast majority of it is out there. I have a lot of stories right now that are currently being shared in my stories on social media, on Instagram and Facebook. If you happen to see this video, I'd love for you to follow me over on Instagram. I'm trying to get as many followers as possible. I need to get to 1,000 followers in order to go live. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I want to go live on Instagram to try and raise money for my friends in Gaza. That's right. Maybe you didn't see that coming. Free Palestine. I gotcha. So I want to do that, right? So if you're into that and you watch this and you are a fellow Kenspiracy theorist, I would love for you guys to come back and keep watching here. I'm going to try and do this regularly on YouTube. I can't say when exactly, but I'd say maybe once a week. I think I could pull off once a week. Would you guys like that? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to come back once a week to discuss different things like this. It's not always going to be about 9/11, I swear. It's going to be about different conspiracy theories, okay? It could be about JFK. It could be about the USS Liberty. You remember that one? The Navy ship in 1967 that Israel attacked? Maybe that would be the one that I address next. Should I do that? You know, the day that Israel attacked America. There's a great documentary on this subject that is on this site, YouTube. The day Israel attacked America. Great doc. And it interviews the people, the surviving servicemen of the Navy, our U.S. servicemen. I have the utmost respect and admiration for anybody, and I do mean anybody, and I truly do mean this, that signs up to defend our country. I mean that, and I don't take that lightly. I think anyone that does that truly is it's admirable to sign up. Maybe not everybody does it with that intent. Some people, most people, a lot of people do it because they have no other choice and they get stuck, and like military is kind of the only way out, and that's sad. And that's kind of by design. But we could talk about that in a different episode. But I just like to stress that, like, I love the people that want to represent the country that I happen to be living in here in America. I love our servicemen and women and everything in between. And I don't like our government. I can't stand the government. So I can't stand the people that give the orders to the generals and all that, you know, get passed down from Washington, you know, and then get handed down to our servicemen and women. And the situations they get put in, it's not right. It's not right why we go to war, honestly. The vast majority of times, almost always really, it could have been avoided and should have been avoided. And didn't it all need to be done? And it's usually done in the name of, like, you know, colonization, and just for all the wrong reasons, right? Just false flag operations to try and, you know, in this situation, right, with 9/11, listen, I'm saying with Netanyahu and Silverstein's connections, and the fact that Israel clearly knew in advance, I mean, and they warned all the hundreds of Israeli employees that happen to work there in New York. I could go on and on about that Israeli streaming, or not streaming service. Geez, that would probably be OnlyFans, right? No, or Pornhub, or like all the porn sites that are owned by Israeli owners. That's where they try and get you guys. Don't let them get you, all right? That's where they get you guys. So, yeah, I could go on and on and on. Maybe I will, but not tonight, because it's getting late. And as of right now, it's still September 11th, 2025. It's still technically the 24-year anniversary of 9/11, a day that I was alive for, and I remember quite vividly. And I remember how our country went out of its way to try and tell us Americans that the terrorists hate us for our freedom. It's Israel that hates us for our freedom. It's our government that hates us for our freedom. I don't know what comes first, you know, in this situation between Israel or our government, right? They seem to be two sides of the same coin at this point. I like to kind of reference that as like the United States of Israel. And I don't like that. I don't like being occupied by a foreign government. and I want Israel out of our government. I want AIPAC and all those, lobbyists, foreign lobbyists out of Washington, right? And so right now, I want to wrap up, and I just want you guys to know that I'd like you to follow me on Instagram. I'd like to come back and watch the Kennysburg Address here on YouTube. And I'd like you to keep asking questions and speaking truth to power and speaking up and speaking out about the genocide in Palestine. All right? Hey, thanks for watching.